We're here at LeWeb in London. So what do you do?
So I'm Andreas Constantinou. I'm a managing director at VisionMobile, which is an analyst firm focusing on a couple of things: developer economics and telco economics.
So you don't only go to the Mobile World Congress, right? So what do you do otherwise the rest of the year?
The Mobile World Congress is like the Mecca or the funfair of the mobile industry, 60,000 people, etc. This is a pretty cool setup. It's, I think, 1,200 people across mostly entrepreneurs and tech people in mobile.
So did you come before at the web?
No, it's my first time, and the reason for coming, actually, it's the first time in London. It's typically in Paris, but the reason for coming is we're launching today a report called Developer Economics 2012, which is the third report, which we release every year, sponsored by Telefonica, covering the needs and wants of developers, how much money they're making, which platforms they're using, where they're coming from, where they're selling to.
So, of course, developers are making most money in Android, right?
No, actually.
No?
Well, I'll give you 3 data points. So
okay.
Firstly, the OS that makes most money in terms of per application is BlackBerry, followed by iOS. The OS that is most costly to develop on is iOS, with about $27,000 per app to develop. And Android is actually much cheaper.
Much cheaper? How is it much cheaper in Android?
Well, I'll let you look at the numbers. It's a free download on developereconomics.com. It's already live. The third data point is we actually asked developers to rate each platform in terms of a number of features, reachability, monetization, etc. On Android, developers gave 2 thumbs down.
Thumbs down?
Yes, in terms of monetization. On iOS, they gave 2 thumbs up. So it's
on monetization?
Yes, completely opposite.
But did you ask how it was like to develop for the actual platform, not monetization?
Okay. In terms of APIs, etc., I think Android was neutral across the board, across the features. Monetization was the only negative thing. I think developers on iOS were also complaining about cost, but we have all the data in the report. The other thing worth pointing out is who's going up and who's dropping. So we saw for the first time that BlackBerry, Brew, and Bada, all the Bs, are seeing developer defection. So we see a mass exodus between 40 and 50%, 40 and 60% actually, of developers who use BlackBerry, Bada, or Brew are planning to abandon it.
So some people are still talking about Brew.
Yeah, no, it's in the US. It's a mainstream platform. But if you notice a couple of things, defection rate, Brew is the platform being most abandoned by developers. 60% of developers who use Brew plan to abandon it. And then you notice that Qualcomm has changed its conferences. It's no longer the Brew conference, it's the Uplink conference. And if you notice the words they're using, they're actually putting Brew at the end, ahead of, behind Android and Windows Phone and all the other platforms they're adopting.
But Samsung and Qualcomm are making huge amounts of money on Android, so what's wrong? Why would they even still push anything else?
Well, you have to look at legacy. So Brew was the first mobile platform after Symbian, but the first with an app store, very important. And they had a very successful business. They had all the benefits that iOS enjoyed before iOS came out with App Store. The reason it declined is because, firstly, they were slow to adopt it and introduce new features. Secondly, they were aiming at the sub-Android market, but of course, as we know, Android has been dropping in price points very rapidly. And so if you're an OEM and you're choosing, should I go Android or should I go Brew, it's much more sensible to go with Android because you can sell globally, whereas with Brew, you only sell to CDMA markets.
So yesterday there was a guy from Evernote, and he was saying Android makes $1 something and iOS makes $1.70 something for him, something like that. But if you sell more than twice as many Android devices, you know, are you measuring how much money in all in terms of also how many devices are sold, or are you only measuring per?
So there is. You can go to people like Bestimo or Apani, and they give you total revenue generated by developers and total paid applications per month. iOS is way ahead of Android. There's no doubt about it. But we're measuring specifically revenues per application per platform and cost per application per platform. And all this is based on 1,500, so 1,500 developers. More than that, actually, who took part in our survey.
So per application per platform. So it includes even if the platform has more users or less users, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, correct.
But nobody's using BlackBerry, so how come they're making more money? I don't understand.
I don't know. Well, when you're saying nobody, it's okay, a figure of speech. Yeah. But there's a lot of developers, and there's 100,000 apps. That's the official RIM number on the App Store. But you know, we hear all the financial troubles RIM is at. I guess the real testament to the decline of Brew is what we show in terms of abandonment. So we saw, I think, over 40% of RIM developers or BlackBerry developers abandoning the platform. And at the same time, something else I should mention, the surprise was Windows Phone. So out of all the developers, if you ignore platforms, that is if you normalize by platform, Windows Phone was the single platform that was way ahead of everything else in terms of intent share. That means, irrespective of what platform you develop on, 57% of Windows Phone developers, 57% of developers want to adopt Windows Phone, want to start using it. And this is, of course, in the big picture of things, this works out as follows. iOS and Android, which are the clear leaders, the duopoly, there's a consolidation. Then you have Windows Phone, which is the top in terms of the platforms people intend to adopt. And then you have the B Club, Brew, BlackBerry, and Bada, which are the platforms people are abandoning. And the sort of platform which is sort of hanging in the balance is the mobile web. It's technically a technology and a standard. It's not a platform that doesn't have an app store, doesn't have an easy way to charge users and so on. But still, overall, in terms of active use, that is mindshare of developers is number 3.
Do you think it might be possible that Angry Birds makes more money on Android being free than being a paid app on iOS?
I think they have alternative additional revenue sources. I haven't checked on the detail, but I'm sure they have additional revenue sources. I believe they have in-app purchases on Android on Angry Birds.
What do you think if Google tomorrow launched a subscription plan for $5 per month or $3 per month? You get access to all the paid apps on Android. Do you think they would leapfrog everybody else in terms of monetization?
So firstly, they would lose a lot of paying users, because look at music, right? There's a huge behavioral shift. You have to go from saying I own this music to I borrow this music for as long as I pay, $10 a month on Spotify, $10 a month on Spotify. So I think this is a big behavioral shift. It's very risky for any single player to radically introduce a platform-wide subscription model. The second reason it's a challenge is because you have to work out the deals with the guys producing the apps. So how are you going to judge it? Are you going to take a Spotify model where you charge per play or per click of that song? It's too much of a departure from classical consumer behavior, I think.
Google should think about something like that, no?
The only thing Google cares about is eyeballs. And so Google cares about the eyeballs that are seeing the Google search bar, and as a result are seeing the Google ads. So even if everyone consumes free ads, this is not something that worries Google at all. The only reason they have paid apps is to be able to compete. One, being able to compete with iOS, which has paid apps. Number 2, being able to support the cost of running the App Store. and that's it.
But running an app store is overrated, no? Like, there's all this stuff about making money and running an app store, but Apple is making 0.1% of their overall profit on the app store, no? I mean,
so Apple, Google, Amazon, everyone does not make profit from the App Store. So the Apple CFO had gone on record a bit over a year ago saying that we make no profit from the App Store. We run it at slightly above break even. The reason they take paid apps is so that the paid apps can cover the cost of the free apps. Because remember that every single app on the App Store, at least on iOS, has to be certified. And before, in the old world of things, you have to pay Brew $50 or $100 at least per update of the application. You have to pay Symbian a similar amount of money. So now Apple takes that cost, and therefore it has to cover it from somewhere. But app stores are not there to make money. App stores are a way to lock users to developers and developers to users.
so it's like a platform play. It's not so much.
So app stores are an essential ingredient to build network effects within a platform. The positive feedback loop that gives you more users with more developers and more developers with more users.
So why doesn't Apple just support all the Android apps and adds it to their App Store?
The reason is that if you were able to discover non-Android apps through the Apple device, that would break the platform model. That would dilute the network effects. The network effects are based on controlling content consumption and content production. That means only Apple users can discover Apple apps and vice versa. Disruption here is Facebook, of course, which has introduced App Center and breaks this balance, because now app developers are saying, cool, I would like to be discovered through Facebook users. It's 900 million active users, and therefore I will slightly update my app so that it's discoverable through Facebook App Center, and still you get the click-through to the Apple Store or the Google Market. The only difference is that in that case, the Apple Store only acts as a pipe, a delivery pipe, to which the application gets charged and delivered to your device.
Do you think there's something wrong in the Windows RT land? Why is there no unlimited desktop third-party apps?
Too early to say. It's a big gamble. The thing that really puzzles me is what is the fundamental reason that for which Microsoft released their Surface? So, option A, they want to make money from hardware. Option B, they understood that software licensing does not work in mobile because Android is free and nobody's charging for software. Option 3, they got tired of waiting for Nokia to do its own tablets. Option 4, they went with Samsung, but because they wanted to avoid pissing off Nokia, who's already a partner, they removed any manufacturer name from the device. So, probably your guess is as good as mine, but there's a very different range of reasons for what Microsoft could have launched Surface, and I'm hoping to get the bottom of that.